But we thought we'd just check on the situation this morning. A community centre that's become a warming centre to help people in need. And Daniel Anckle is with us this morning, the Executive Director of the Cecil Community Centre, now Warming Centre. Daniel, good morning. Welcome to our program.
Good morning, Heather. Thank you for having me.
Well, listen, we're talking to you in your office, and I'm glad to have you there. Right just out of our view is where your warming centre is located, but obviously we want to protect the privacy of the people who are seeking some help for you right now. Tell us what's going on, though, this morning. Who's there? How many are there? What does it look like in the centre?
So if those who are not familiar with Cecil Community Centre would not know that we have a beautiful auditorium. It's a historic building, and there's an auditorium that has a stage. And so we have about 30 beds, cots, if you will, that are lined up in that space. They're all sort of socially distanced apart, and all of them are occupied. So we've been full since we opened on Monday, and we've been at capacity, and we've had people show up, after we've been full, wanting a bed. And so that's been a bit of a challenge for us. You mentioned that there are 140 spaces.
142, yes.
Right, and then 9,000 shelter beds, but that still isn't enough. So we're still trying to juggle to move people around. This is a great partnership between Christie Ossington Neighbourhood Centre and Cecil Community Centre and the City of Toronto's Shelter Support and Housing Administration.
All looking after. Can I just jump in on that? Because your capacity, as I mentioned, 142 is the capacity for warming centres. Yours is 30, and you've been full since Monday. We're Friday. If you were to go to your front door right now, we've been looking at, would there be a line? I mean, there are people who want to get in. What is it like to turn them away? And what happens to them, Daniel? Right.
So, Heather, there wouldn't be a line because it's too cold outside for people to line up. What they've done is we have in our reception area, there are some seats. And what the city has allowed us to do, I think there's only 4. We removed some to create a sort of reception. But there's 4 seats there. And so I believe that people have slept there. Additional people have slept in those seats overnight. Because there is no other space, and at some point it's very difficult to move them around. So they've slept there. It's been a real challenge. I've been leaving work a little bit later this week, sometimes 9 o'clock, 9:30. And as I'm walking out the door, there's people waiting there, and it's so sad to see people who are desperately wanting somewhere warm to sleep that night, and they don't have a space. People saying to me, "Do you think I'll get in tonight?" And I'm saying, "I really don't know." They're working hard to do that. And then I walk to the subway, and it's really cold, and I just can't imagine what it's like to not know where you're going to sleep that night and how you're going to stay warm. And that troubles me every single night I go home.
So do you know what happens to them? I mean, we've been talking a lot. I was on the subway late last night, as a matter of fact, and I did notice a lot of people who seem to be, not on the subway cars, but in the subway stations, seeking some warmth at that time. I mean, is that what people are doing, or what happens to them when the capacity is reached?
Well, for most people, the city is able to move people around, and they actually have a TTC shuttle bus that will move people from one warming centre to another if there are spaces available. So I think for the most part, people are being able to be moved. But I think what's happening really is that people who are not able to access those warming centres are staying in places like subway stations, anywhere that's inside. I've heard that people are staying at all-night coffee shops and so on. And I'm hoping that the owners of those coffee shops are allowing them to stay there. But when there's nowhere else to go, you kind of get desperate and you stay where it's warm.
So we talk about the largest city in the country, and obviously there are emergency shelter beds, but there are just 142 warming centre spots in 4 warming centres across Metro Toronto. There's a push, in fact, it's come before City Council, Daniel, to open warming centres longer throughout winter and when it's warmer. I mean, right now the rules are they open when it's -15 or colder, or when a wind chill is -20 or below. Some people want it pushed higher to 0, right on the freezing mark. I mean, what do you think of the propositions, and what should the city do to address this further?
Well, I think it's a good idea to have the warming centres open much longer and outside of those extreme cold weather alert days, just because last week wasn't an extreme cold weather, but it was really cold. And at nighttime, it's colder. So where do people stay? Our community centre closes at 10 p.m. every night normally. And we have people that stay with us the entire day because they have nowhere else to go. Well, at 10 p.m., we put them out, but where do they go? And when it's not warm, 0 is cold. Even 5 degrees at nighttime is cold. So it would be great to have those warming centres open all year. That would be good. I think they should have spaces for people who are homeless that are open year round anyways. But that isn't really the answer. People are here because they don't have somewhere to live. And so, I would urge the city to look at housing, so affordable housing and supportive housing for people. This is really just a Band-Aid. And while we've made a commitment to the city and to our communities to provide this service, I would much rather have people live in their own homes, whether it be independently or with some support. And so I would urge the city, for now, perhaps keep the warming centres open much longer. But really, what you need to do at the City of Toronto is find ways to create more affordable housing for people. People are here because they have no housing. And, when I look at the people who are in my warming centre, I can see that they're not the typical people that you might imagine that would be at a warming centre.
Who
that
are
would be
they?
homeless. They're your next door neighbor. They're your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your mother, your father. They're ordinary folk. I have people that look like they go to work during the day and come to the warming centre at night. That's how they look. So it's because they don't have somewhere to live, not because they don't have a job, it's because they don't have somewhere to live. And I think that's what we need to address more than anything. Warming centres are great for the time being, but that should be a very last resort, and we're not there yet.
Daniel, you've just raised such important issues, and we'll keep in touch and talk about these further. Obviously, housing, inflation, all of these high cost of everything. You're seeing it in your day-to-day circle. You do great work in the community and essential work right now at this time of cold and danger for a lot of people out on the streets. Thank you for the time this morning and the conversation.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you very much.
Thanks.